Hi guys, it's Frank from Tiny Plastic Spaceman here to continue the complete and full review of the brand new Badger Xtreme Patriot 105. This is part 2 of the review where we do a contrast and compare usage of the Xtreme Patriot 105 and compare it to the standard Patriot 105. So, without further ado, let's get right in. Alright, so moving right along, what I've got is some Badger Spectratex dark brown paint. It's just, well, they call it light brown, but it's kind of medium or dark brown or whatever. And then a thing of plain water to thin it down if I need to. So, I've got the Xtreme 105 and the standard 105, which I'll use first, just as a comparison. So normally this sort of paint I would spray at a high-ish air pressure. I'm at about 23 psi. So let's see. And I'll basically, what I'll do is I'll knock it down a step at a time. So, let's see. So it sprays quite quick. It's 0.4 needle, so it comes out quite wide, as you can see. So I'm going to refill because that little tiny bit of paint is now gone. I'm going to add in a bit of water. So I'm down to about 15 psi now. So I'm just going to back flush this slightly. And that's just mixing the paint. Could maybe be a little bit thinner. That's about right. And now, still comes out nice. Covers good coverage there. Okay, so at 15 psi, still nice coverage. I'm going to drop it down to 10 now. It's a bit spattery, so it needs to be thin just a bit more. Maybe one more drop there. So when you get those bubbles that size, that's when it's nice. The paint's thinning well. Now remember, this is still the same big needle. You can tell that there's a little tiny bit of a clog inside the nozzle, I think, because it is caterpillaring just a tiny bit, but I'm able to get very fine lines before I get spidering. I can drop it down. I can try dropping on just a tiny bit more. It's not even registering on the it's not even registering on the pressure gauge. So like I said, I think there's just a tiny bit of a clog inside the nozzle, I believe. Also, a little bit of dry tip. So here's my dry clip cleaning regimen. There you go. Sorted, spray off the water, and carry on. And now the lines are even finer, but yeah, there's definitely a clog somewhere. Just something inside the needle that's preventing that from spraying out. But I don't know if you can. I don't think you can actually see that. There we are. You can still get, even at less than 10 psi, you can still get really good coverage there. Right, okay, so that is the 105. So now I'm just going to reset, put another piece of paper on there, dump this paint out, and we'll use the Xtreme. Okay, so now we've got the Xtreme 105, attach it, and this is the first time I'm putting paint in. Again, it's the Spectratex light brown. We're back up to 23 psi. Adding not quite as much paint because I threw out a lot of paint that last time. So we're putting in some paint. It's angled a bit higher than I'm used to, so there's our paint. And first go with some paint. Very nice. You can tell there's a noticeable amount less paint coming through. That's because of these smaller needle size. Just checking for dry tip. None yet. And again at the 23 or so psi, try some detail. There's a bit of dry tip there, so. It's quite nice. You can tell that the paint particles are smaller at this pressure. So I'm going to add a bit of water. It's almost thinned almost 1 to 1. I'm using what you call it, a tissue this time because I don't want to poke myself. So you can see it bubbling there. That's just mixing the paint. It's just a very quick way to mix the paint. So I'm going to drop it down to about 15 psi. That's okay. There's 15 psi. Now, not going for coverage, going for detail this time. It's you can tell I don't use dagger strokes very often. Still nice. Quite like it. Again, I've kept the trigger at the same sort of adjustment as the 105. So wow. I do notice that with the finer tip needle, it does do need to blow it out a bit more. You can tell I use mostly the 105 rather than my chrome for most of my stuff, but these lines are really very tight, I must say. These lines here are the ones I was just spraying, and these are 15 psi, and these are 15 psi. So maybe that impresses you, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It impresses me. Again, 15 psi. Nice. liking it. So what I'm going to do now is thin it down just a bit more and drop down to a 10. So again, just back flushing it just to, there we are, making sure all the thick paint at the bottom is mixed in with that water. In my experience, when dealing with acrylics, when it's bubbling like this and isn't getting quite to the top, that's when it's nicely mixed. That's when you have the sort of the right ratio for the air pressure that you're going to be spraying at. I don't know if that's magic or what, but that just seems to be what works for me. Airbrushing is such a individual art form, and I hesitate to say that because I don't really call myself an artist, but that just somehow works. Okay, let me see if I can turn off one of these lights because it seems I'm getting a lot of glare, even off the white paper, so that seems to be better. So this is 10 psi. Okay, I got a little bit of a ring of paint on the outside. Probably won't be able to see it very well. But the cool thing about this particular tip is that you can just take it off with your finger. Somewhere in there's some paint. So it's some nice, really nice detail there. Can probably go quicker because there's a lot of atomization around the line itself. It would seem. So now maybe you can see that there's just a bit of dry tip on the needle. Spray it out. I'm not usually a fine detail painter kind of guy, so apologies if this seems like really tedious, me trying to clean the tip and stuff like that. Right, so I'm going to try lowering the air pressure now before thinning it. So now we're down to 5, and I haven't thinned the paint. It's spattering. It's too thick. One more for good measure. Okay, so that's nicely mixed. Well, I say 5. It's somewhere below 10. I don't have my my gauge doesn't actually go down that far. Well, I should say it starts at 10, and there's a bit of a gap between the low point needle and 10. I'm just gonna, might just be a bit there somewhere. It's a tiny bit higher now. There you go. There's a bit of a clog. Right. Paint's still too thick. I'm sure somewhere there's some real airbrush artists, custom guys or something like that, just screaming at me. There we go. It's better. It's definitely spraying better. So I'm trying to find a clean bit of the paper here. Again, sorry if this is a bit too tedious for some of you guys, but I'm getting to the point where this is beyond what sort of painting I would be doing myself and most wargamers, I believe, but I'm trying to do as thorough a test as I'm capable of doing. So I'm going to kick it up to about 15 again. And now the paint's probably just way too thin. On the paper, it's really nice. I gotta say, I don't know. I think is that enough of a review, or enough to see? Can see the nice thing about the tip is I know not everybody's crazy about the tip, but it is nice that you can see immediately when you have dry tip. If you've got this, and I've got some clean spirit in there at the moment, so I can't use it, but this is the sort of view usually that you have using the standard Patriot. So you gotta turn the like 90 degrees almost to see what the tip is condition is like. But with this one, it's exposed anyway, just the same as on the other one, on the standard 105. It's the same length needle. It's not any longer. The body is the same length. So you barely have to turn to see if you do have dry tip, and if you do, just pick it off with your finger very carefully, and you're set. Okay. Oops, sorry about that again. So I'm going to try now is I'm going to turn the easel upside down, which just makes it just not even an easel anymore, it's just a board. I'm going to try, so we're at 15 psi still. So now I'm going to try using the pack valve. And the easiest thing I've found is to, when you're adjusting something that's unknown, turn it all the way in, all the way to one end. And it was just at the extreme open end, now it's at the extreme closed end. You saw these sort of like shark gill type of things that I just did there. So I'm going to try the same sort of thing. There's absolutely no air coming through. Well, there is air coming through, but you can see it's just spattering, the very lightest spattering. So, okay, so we're going to do, let's say, a half a turn. It's about a half a turn. We'll try it in a different spot. There's a bit more air coming through. I can just barely hear it. Okay, now we're going to try another half a turn open. Now you can, maybe you can hear the air. So you can see the spatter difference. I haven't touched the paint, haven't changed the air pressure. So it seems there's a very fine, let's turn a quarter turn. Can you hear that? That's when you're getting spattering. And usually, if everything was normal, you can turn it just maybe an eighth of a turn. It's too much. There seems to be a very fine line of where this is sort of set. And I think the pack valve is going to be one of those things that either you use it a bit to try it out and then never use it again, or you just never use it. I don't know. That's from my perspective as a wargame painter. I can see its use in some other aspects of painting. I'm not sure if the t-shirt guy is going to use it, or maybe the custom guys. For me, I think I envision that I will be just have it completely all the way out and just use the airbrush as normal. It is a nice thing to have, just not a must-have, I would say. Also, it does seem a bit loose. I didn't put any lube on that, if you remember. It could use something, ideally, to be honest, something like this, which is the Iwata CH. You can feel it actually takes real effort to turn that. It's basically the same thing. I think they call it the MAC valve. I'm not sure what their abbreviation means, but it's, you know, roughly the same thing. This one is a bit too loose, and it's very fine adjustment between going from here to this. It's like half a turn difference. So if there were some way to make that tighter, I suppose. I don't know what the term would be. So yeah, I think. But overall, I think this is obviously a very good airbrush. Quick update. I just painted an entire model using the Xtreme, and I based it with well, not that one, this one, the 105, the standard 105, because it does have the 0.4 needle in it. So I did the base coating with that, the priming and the base coating, and basically did all the detail work with the Xtreme. And so after using it on a whole model, I thought it'd be good, rather than doing another separate video, just to say that I really like this airbrush. Now, reasons why is basically I did a bunch of metallics. I use these Dark Star metallics because they're really good. I really like these metallics. I do have to thin them down quite a lot. They're very goopy when in the bottle. But they are my favorite metallics to use through the airbrush at the moment. Thinned them down, and I sprayed those, because they're metallic, I sprayed them through the standard 105. And then for all the detail work, basically it's yellow on top of metallics. So it was already primed black, so I went over the areas that I was going to paint yellow with Minotaur, this gray Minotaur color, base gray, which just happens to be the sort of roughly the primer gray, and then over that with the Snow White, which is as bright as the whites get for the Minotaur stuff. Thinned them down about 1:1, spraying roughly 10 to 15 psi, and the same thing with this, with the Craven yellow, and it came out really nice. I didn't use the pack valve, like I said earlier in the video. I just sprayed it basically straight. I did try using my chrome for the detail work, and I ended up going back to the Xtreme, because the chrome, I think it's a 0.23. This has a 0.3, I think. And I could, well, first of all, there's the cleaning the chrome is pretty difficult. There's the tiniest clog somewhere in there, and I basically have to let it soak in my cellulose thinners. I ended up going back to the Extreme, which I now need to clean a bit more, because it was just less hassle. So if that's any sort of endorsement that that you were looking for, I think that's a huge bonus. Personally, I think you could probably, I'm just going to clean this while I talk. I think you could do a lot worse than having a 105 with the standard needle in it. Again, it's a 0.4. Use this for basing, for priming and basing, and especially metallics. You can go down, you know, obviously earlier in the video I went down to I think 10 psi and less than 10 psi, and you can get really good detail work with this as long as you keep the tip clean. And then with the Extreme, you know, if you don't want to go through the hassle of the tiny, I mean, okay, let me just, I'll be lazy and leave the needle in place, but I'll take the tip off, the needle, nozzle I should say. I mean, look at the size of that thing. It's, I mean, forget the size of a fingertip. It's absolutely tiny. If you lose that in normal pile carpet, you're done. Won't even focus right. Whereas on the Patriots, and again, Patriots, I'll get to that in a second why I'm bringing that up. Look at the size. I mean, you can fit the needle, the nozzle for the Renegade inside the Patriot nozzle. So the reason why, another bonus, like I was saying, was that you have, and this is not the way I normally take these apart, by the way, you have spares, basically. You've got spares. You've got, if you got this, and you got this, you instantly have spares. You have swappable needles, you got the back end fits, the whole trigger assembly. This trigger will fit on pretty much most of the Badger stuff. The tops of the you know, whether you get the plastic or the metal one, you know, the plastic one comes with it. You know, it's all interchangeable pretty much. So I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. I would say if you're going to have one airbrush, get the Patriot 105. If you're going to have two airbrushes, get the Extreme and the 105. So you have the 105 family, sort of. Get an extra one of these, the plastic things, and add it to your normal 105, and you're all set. You know, what more do you need? You know, this was doing with a 0.3 at 15 psi. I was doing very nice small detail bits without having to do any masking. I did do some masking on some of the larger pieces at first, and then I just said, you know, skip it. You know, it's easy. So I think that settles it. Go with the Patriot 105 as your first airbrush. Extreme Patriot 105 for your second, and your what I would say general detail. If you're an absolute expert, go for the Renegade Chrome. This brush will stand up to any of the Horter Steenbeck and Iwata brushes very nicely. It's half the price as well, usually. You know, you cannot go wrong with it. And I'm just gonna, while that's, so there we go. That's my final say on the matter, I think. I might have an update later on, but I figured since I was doing just finishing up the video anyway, there we go. I think that that cuts it. So another thing I wanted to mention was just to be aware is that you do need to keep this little rubber cap in place whenever you're not using the airbrush, because the tip of the needle is just so exposed. You can see it there in the light, that if you catch it on something and you're just tossing it around on your desk, you will bend the tip of that needle, and that will not be good, because that will cost you, I don't know, 10-15 pounds, you know, which is what, $20 or $25 plus shipping if you're not getting it from somewhere local. So that's something you definitely need to be aware of. I've actually started doing the same thing on my regular Patriot, because it does have an exposed needle, but it's not so bad. But if it does land right on the tip, that will not be good. But you can, you know, there is some protection, a little bit of protection around it, but you do need to be careful. So yeah, that's it. This has been Frank with tinyplasticspacemen.com. Please check us out at facebook.com/tinyplasticspacemen and give us a like. Follow us on the Facebooks. You can also catch us on Instagram, and that is at TPS Painting Studio. So I think that about wraps it up for the Xtreme Patriot 105 review. Any further updates, I'll do another video. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you later.